Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 348, The Bigger the Better. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having got off the ferry that they were on at the end of last episode, and the ferry ended up taking them to a Pokemon Center that was kind of in the middle of a forest. Ash and the gang went into the Pokemon Center to rest up and shit like that, but it was then time for them to leave and continue on their way to Fortree City. So, Ash, Brock, and Max did exactly that, heading outside the Pokemon Center, with Ash asking Max, while happily stretching, what way Fortree City was. Max proceeded to check his Pokénav and found out that Fortree City was located just down the forest path ahead of them, adding that there were also other ways to get to Fortree City, but luckily, this one was the fastest. Hearing this, Max, Brock, and Ash all get excited and prepare to head to Fortree City for real, but it was just then that Pikachu started freaking out and acting strange. And because of this, Ash and the gang asked Pikachu what was wrong, and they eventually realized that Pikachu was trying to tell them that they had left May inside of the Pokemon Center, with Brock the one being able to figure this out. Pikachu also tries to explain that the reason why May hadn't left the Pokemon Center was because she wasn't prepared to go yet, but Ash didn't wait around to hear this, running back into the Pokemon Center to get her to come out. When Ash does go inside and goes to the little hotel-esque room where May was staying, she was found packing up her supplies and all her tools and shit, such as makeup and essential oils and, shit like that. When Ash barged in, and he started to yell at her and tried to physically drag her from her room, stating that they were leaving immediately. However, May resists the pulling when she spots a mirror and checks herself out in it, causing Ash to fall over from May's sudden resistance. As May examines herself in the mirror, trying to make herself look better by fixing her hair and all that shit, and Ash starts to yell at her, saying that he wanted to get to Fortree City as soon as possible. They were already running late. Although May simply rebutted that she was checking out her hair like a normal person, but Ash rebutted that he never inspected himself in the mirror or checked out his hair at all. It wasn't a normal person thing to do. May was shocked by this and suggests that Ash change his behavior and check himself out in the mirror from now on, but Ash just rebutted that was only for girls and he wasn't a girl. May got mad at Ash for basically assigning gender roles, and Ash just got more mad at May for May screaming at him. Ash realized that all this yelling was only distracting him from getting to Fortree though, so he tried to end the argument, although he was now red in the face with anger, as he said that he would think about checking himself out in the mirror, but he would do that later, as they had to go to Fortree City. May sarcastically states her interest in going to Fortree City, and sarcastically apologizes for slowing Ash down by trying to look her absolute best. Ash was pissed off by May's sarcasm, and states that basically what he wanted to do was more important than what May wanted to do, and after this little argument, he realized that he was yelling again, and simply just went outside to go to Fortree, and May reluctantly followed. Only doing so that she could continue yelling at Ash, because she still felt like she was in the right. Even as Ash and May walked, though, an argument still persisted between the two, even in front of Brock, Max, and Pikachu, with May complaining about how boring the walk was, and stating how she wished Ash would pick a destination that wasn't so far away. Ash argues some bullshit back, simply telling May to shut up, and they begin to throw insults at each other, telling each other to shut up and calling each other cunts and all that shit, making Max annoyed, as he wondered how long this annoying-ass argument would go on, with Brock stating that, knowing Ash, he knew that Ash would never give in, so the argument would never end. Hell, even Pikachu was getting pissed off about the argument. Just then, though, as the argument persisted, two people dressed in royal-looking outfits called out to Ash and the gang from up the road, and they introduced themselves as Oscar and Andy, respectively, with Oscar being the dude in the soldier-resembling royal outfit, and Andy being the woman in the gown. And Oscar and Andy then introduced themselves together as the tag battle couple, exciting Max, as he had heard the term tag battle before, and he thought it sounded interesting. As for Brock, the second he saw Andy, he was in love, even if it seemed as though Oscar and Andy were a couple. And as for Oscar and Andy, not only were they in love, but they accused May and Ash of being in love, mistaking them to be a couple, stating that anyone that fought with each other was in love. Ash and May very quickly deny them being a couple, very much against this idea, obviously, but Oscar and Andy continue to insist that Ash and May liked each other, talking about all the shit that they'd argued about, but Ash and May just turn their heads away from each other, not wanting to face even the thought of being with each other. However, Oscar and Andy then began dancing with each other, as they stated that they saw Ash and May's love, apparently, and they wanted to challenge them to a tag battle, couple versus couple. Although Ash and May still denied being a couple, they soon stopped, as they wanted to have this tag battle, with Ash especially intrigued, since he had never had a tag battle before, and he barely even knew what it entailed, though he figured that any type of battle would be good practice for his gym battle, and May stated that she wanted to participate in the tag battle as well, since she figured it would be good practice for her upcoming contests. Oscar and Andy were delighted to see that they now had opponents, as they began to explain the rules of tag battles. Basically, it was just two trainers versus another two trainers at the same time, and they each sent out one Pokemon at the same time. So it was essentially a double battle, but with two trainers on each team. As Oscar and Andy were explaining this and dancing, Brock suddenly interrupted, introducing himself to Andy and starting to flirt, stating that he would be the judge of the battle, while also judging her performance, stating that he knew that her performance would be good in the tag battle. And this pissed Max off, so as Brock continued flirting, Max of course pulled him away by the ear. Brock's heart was on fire, though, so he wouldn't stay pulled away for long, and he took the center of the field when Oscar declared that it was time for the battle, and stated how excited he was to show off his royal skills, and danced with Andy, as she said the same thing. And then Oscar and Andy took one side of the field, while Ash and May took the other, and Brock reiterated the rules of the tag battle, having heard them, although he knew that Ash and May might not have understood, since he flirted and all that shit. And without further ado, it was time for the battle to begin, as Oscar sent out a Nidoking. It had been quite a while since Ash had seen a Nidoking, so he excitedly scanned it with his Pokedex to find out if the Hoenn Pokedex added any more information on it. And Andy then sent out her Pokemon, a Nidoqueen, and May was interested in this one, since it was like the girl version of Nidoking, hence the name, and scanned it with her Pokedex to learn more about it. While May and Ash scanned the Pokemon with their Pokedex, Nidoking and Nidoqueen pounded their chests and roared, signifying that they were ready to battle, as Max watched this excitedly, with Pikachu also excited, and Max stated how excited he was to see them use their full strength. Ash realized, after looking at the Pokedex, that both Pokemon were ground types, as he knew that Nidoqueen was the same type as Nidoking, so he knew that therefore a water type would be his best bet, so he confidently sent out his Corphish as his Pokemon, and tells May it's her turn to pick, seeing that she hadn't already, and May begins to consider. Although it takes her a long time to decide, annoying Ash as he loses his patience, and angrily begs May to just make a goddamn choice already, which causes May to yell at Ash in return, and Max just sighed, along with Pikachu, with both of them extremely annoyed. However, after taking her sweet time, May finally came to a decision and decided on releasing Skitty, so the battle was Corphish and Skitty versus Nidoking and Nidoqueen. After a little bit of standard battle trash talk between Ash and May to Andy and Oscar, Max gets a little annoyed, just wanting the battle to fucking begin already, as it does, with Ash having Corphish start things off with a Bubble Beam, leading May to tell Skitty to use Assist. The assist ends up being an Ember, and both the Ember and Bubble Beam head straight for Nidoking, but unfortunately, before the attacks could make it to Nidoking, they both went out of control and proceeded to collide into each other, therefore negating both attacks before they could even do any damage. This leaves Nidoking confused, as it was fully expecting an attack, and it also leaves Corphish angry, and proceeds to yell at Skitty, ordering it to attack only after it had attacked, so their attacks had no chance of colliding, but Skitty just turns to argue back. However, when it turned around to Corphish to argue back, it had forgotten that it hadn't stopped the Ember on its tail, so Corphish ended up getting hit by Skitty's Ember, and Skitty thought this was pretty funny and that Corphish deserved it, so it continued to hit Corphish willingly, making Corphish even angrier, and it started to yell at Skitty some more. But now, Skitty was getting bored by this because it had such a short attention span, and simply just occupied itself by itching itself with its claws. Obviously, Ash and May were arguing with each other now, blaming each other for their attacks hitting each other, even though it was really neither of their faults. And since Ash and May were distracted arguing and couldn't order Skitty and Corphish to do anything, this gave Andy and Oscar the opportunity to dance as they ordered Nidoqueen and Nidoking to use Dynamic Punch at the same time. And boy, do these Dynamic Punches hit hard on Corphish and Skitty respectively, sending them flying back. Ash wasn't about ready to give up though, as he told Corphish to attack again with a Bubble Beam, and Corphish leaped forward to do so, but before he could get the attack off, May told Skitty to use Blizzard, and it ended up hitting Corphish, much to Brock's confusion as to why Skitty was doing this, although the Blizzard then got even worse, as it continued to hit Corphish, and eventually froze it, encasing it in a block of ice, by accident. Because Skitty was just so untrained, I guess. May was a bit embarrassed by Skitty's failure, so she told it to correct its mistake by using Assist once again, and specifically an Ember so that it could melt the ice surrounding Corphish, but unfortunately, Skitty's Assist this time turned into a String Shot, which just ended up wrapping Corphish, who was still in ice, in a sticky String Shot thread. May just got even more annoyed at this, complaining about how she wanted Skitty to use Ember instead of String Shot, but Max pointed out that Skitty does not know what move it was using when using Assist. It had no control, so yelling at it wasn't nice, and instead, Max scolded May alone for trying to use Assist, despite how she should have known how the attack wasn't guaranteed to do the attack that you wanted. And overall just commented that this battle was not going well whatsoever. Despite Max's criticism of May using Assist, she used Assist again, hoping to get it right, and having Skitty use Ember, but instead, this time, Assist turned to Silverwind. And all that ends up doing is turning Corphish into an ice statue, as the ice essentially gets shaped into a nice shape, neatly surrounding Corphish, instead of just encasing him. And Oscar and Andrew were amazed at this, thinking it was beautiful, but May responded that this was not an attack on purpose, and told Skitty to use Assist again, hoping that it would actually get an Ember this time, and this time, it actually did. This does in fact melt the ice, freeing Corphish, but Corphish was angry as fuck because the Ember also happened to burn Corphish right in the ass, so it jumped up to Skitty and glared at it angrily and started to chase it around the battlefield, trying to hit it with a crab hammer. Then May and Ash started arguing again as well, with May ordering Ash to stop Corphish, since she explained that Skitty was just trying to help out Corphish by unthawing it. Although Ash rebutted that a partner was not supposed to freeze their goddamn ally in the first place, like Skitty had to Corphish, so Corphish had every goddamn right to be angry. May argues back, however, that it was Corphish's own fault for getting in the way of Skitty's Blizzard in the first place, and Ash rebuttals that Skitty was the one who interrupted Corphish's Bubble Beam, and they just scream at each other immensely again, making Oscar and Andy a little embarrassed by their opponents, though they decided to take the opportunity, with May and Ash being distracted, to finish them off as they hold hands and dance around a little bit and tell their Pokemon to use Submission. It's then revealed that the Nidoqueen and Nidoking loved each other as well, as they proceeded to do a rollout together by grabbing each other's hands and feet, and they basically combined into one massive submission attack, and Skitty and Corphish didn't even notice since they were too busy chasing each other when they were suddenly hit by the submission being launched into the air, and they both land being knocked out, leading Brock to declare the royal tag team couple, Oscar and Andy, the winners. To celebrate their victory, Andy and Oscar hold hands and declare their love for each other and congratulate each other on doing a good job. Andy and Oscar then thank Ash and May for the battle, calling them a happy couple as they rush off into the forest holding hands. And their Nidoking and Nidoqueen follow, holding hands as well, as Ash and May yell out to them, telling them to come back so that they could have a rematch, and they angrily say that they were not a couple and they weren't happy together either. And once Andy and Oscar were both gone, May and Ash continued to argue as per usual now. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was somewhere in the forest, depressed as fuck at the fact that they hadn't stolen any Pokemon in quite some time. And Jessie complained about how even if they did fucking steal shit, they always failed, and as a result, they were still poor and could never fulfill their wish of becoming rich. James and Meowth were especially sad at the fact that after the events of last episode, their attempt at making a permanent Team Rocket base, remember the cave from last episode? Well, yeah, that was now kiboshed because they had been blasted off far away from the cave, and they didn't know how to get back to it. And the two of them began to fear what Giovanni would think if they heard about the destruction of the base, leading Meowth to come to the conclusion that stealing Pikachu for real this time and giving him to Giovanni would be their only way to make up for the base being destroyed. Although they were still skeptical that they would actually be able to capture Pikachu, Jessie tried to lift everyone's spirits, stating that they simply try harder and come up with a better plan, confident that they would succeed now. And Meowth, James, and Jessie all cheered at this, starting to plan an actual good plan to capture Pikachu, when suddenly the royal tag team couple, Oscar and Andy, then showed up. Because, they had walked into the forest, so they were bound to run into Team Rocket, who were in the same forest, and they called out to them. Jessie instantly took notice of Nidoking and Nidoqueen as Oscar and Andy asked Team Rocket for a tag battle, likely believing that Jessie and James happened to be a couple, although they didn't reveal this quite yet. Meowth and James were in a bad mood, so they refused the battle, although Jessie told them to hold up, stating that this could be their chance if they battled Andy and Oscar. James wondered what the fuck Jessie was talking about, leading Jessie to explain that if they battled the Nidoking and Nidoqueen, then they could weaken them and then steal them for Giovanni. Meowth and James agreed with Jessie that Nidoqueen and Nidoking would be great presents for Giovanni, and they officially set their sights on stealing them after they weakened them in a battle, so they accepted Oscar and Andy's challenge, whispering a cheer to each other. So, with that, Jessie, James, Meowth, Oscar, and Andy go into an open field in the forest and stand on opposite sides. So, Jessie sent out Seviper to battle, and James sent out Cacnea to battle. James then starts off the battle by ordering a Needle Arm, as Cacnea rushes in towards Nidoking and Nidoqueen, and Seviper does the same when Jessie orders a Wrap from it. Although, before the attacks could make contact, Oscar and Andy told Nidoking and Nidoqueen to use Dynamic Punch on Cacnea specifically, and this meant that Cacnea was attacked double time, flying back and smashing into Seviper, which sends them both back. And to make matters worse, Seviper was using a wrap when Cacnea got flown back into it, so this meant that Seviper accidentally wrapped Cacnea, who was now struggling to get free. Jessie and James then start arguing with each other, talking about whose fault was the fact that they were constantly losing, because, James blamed Jessie for Cacnea getting caught in the wrap, but Jessie blamed James for Cacnea getting blown back into Seviper in the first place, when it should have been strong enough to deal with Nidoking or Nidoqueen. Eventually, Meowth butts in, trying to get them to quit arguing and start battling, saying that if they didn't focus on the battle, then they would definitely lose, for sure. However, when Team Rocket was still distracted, though, Oscar and Andy took the opportunity to tell Nidoking and Nidoqueen to finish off the battle with Hyper Beam, and sure enough, Nidoqueen and Nidoking both launched Hyper Beam at the same time, and to prove the power of their love, both Hyper Beams clash together to form a heart, and they strike Team Rocket, causing an explosion that sends Team Rocket blasting off. With Team Rocket gone, Oscar and Andy happily hold hands and declare their love for each other, stating that love really conquered all. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, Brock and Max had suggested that Ash and May get the loss out of their minds by simply continuing on to Four Tree City. So they did this, going on to Four Tree City, passing by a river, but they couldn't stop arguing, unfortunately, as Ash skipped ahead of everyone else, eager to get to Four Tree, as he stated how bad May battled, and claimed it was her fault they lost the battle against Oscar and Andy. Although May retorted that Ash wasn't any better, and it was actually his fault that they lost the battle against Oscar and Andy, and this just caused an even worse argument, as they both yelled at each other immensely, making Max and Brock sigh in annoyance. Although Brock tries to cheer himself up by comparing this argument to arguments of the past, telling Max that an argument between a man and a woman couldn't be avoided. It was one of the staples of life since the beginning of time, apparently. Brock was just making up some bullshit to try and distract himself from the arguing, but Max believed all this bullshit and said whoa in disbelief. Meanwhile, after Team Rocket had recovered from their blast-off, they ended up wandering through the forest, arguing as well. Jessie and James were anyway, arguing about whose fault it was for losing against the tag team couple, Oscar and Andy. And then suddenly, James pivots to singing a song after a long time of arguing. Although, this song just furthered the argument, as it was a song about how bad Jessie was at battling, leading Jessie to cover her ears and sing about him and how bad he was at battling, as Meowth sighed in annoyance, covering his ears, trying to block out both Jessie and James. Unbeknownst to Ash and the gang and Team Rocket, they were actually walking right beside each other, just on opposite sides of the forest. So, when they came out of the forest, where no more trees were blocking their view from each side, they were able to see each other right as they both declared that each of them thought that they could do better with a different partner. So basically, May was like, Ash, I don't need you, I could do better with someone else. Ash thought the same, and then James thought the same for Jessie, and Jessie thought the same for him. Anyways, upon hearing this, how they all wanted a different partner, Jessie took the opportunity to get a different partner, as she immediately grabbed May and declared her as her new partner, and James did the same to Ash, placing his hand on his shoulder and declaring that he chose him. Jessie and James saw that they had each taken new partners, and proceeded to taunt each other, stating that even with new partners, they wouldn't be able to beat each other. So, with that, Jessie and James officially decided to have a tag battle against each other, with Jessie teaming up with May, and Ash teaming up with James. Although Ash and May said that they wanted new partners, they obviously didn't have Team Rocket in mind, so they were shocked that Team Rocket was not wanting to steal their Pokemon, but instead fight with them, and they were hesitant to. But Ash and May realized that having a tag battle against each other could be the perfect way to sort out their grievances, so they accepted Team Rocket's want to have a tag battle, so it was officially time for the battle between Jessie and May versus Ash and James to begin. As for Brock, Max, Pikachu, and Meowth's reaction to all this, they were very, very depressed, not wanting to see all this fighting going on still. There happened to be a little battlefield next to a river, so Team Rocket and Ash and the gang all went there, and Brock, Meowth, Max, and Pikachu watched as Ash and James took one side of the field, and May and Jessie took the other, with Ash and James sending out Corphish and Cacnea, and Jessie and May sent out Seviper and Skitty. Jessie then told May that, regardless of their differences, they would have to work together to defeat the guys, and they proceeded to collaborate to come up with a strategy. James noticed this, and declared to Ash that they had to come up with a strategy as well, and after a bit of strategy time, the battle began, with Jessie suddenly making the first attack without there being any referee to officially start the battle, having Seviper use Poison Tail on Corphish, and May then jumped in, having Skitty use Blizzard on Cacnea. However, before the attacks can hit, Cacnea uses Pin Missile on Skitty, and Corphish uses Harden to deflect the Poison Tail, therefore rendering the Poison Tail useless against Corphish. As for the Pin Missile and Blizzard, they collided, causing damage to both Cacnea and Skitty, and sending them both flying back. Seviper and Cacnea then strike each other with a Needle Arm and a Poison Tail, although the Needle Arm does more damage to Seviper, as James congratulates Cacnea on this good hit, which pisses Jessie off. So Seviper then gets revenge on Cacnea by using Wrap on it to trap it, and then Skitty uses Assist on Corphish, and the assist happens to be an Ember. However, to counter the Ember, Corphish sends out a Bubble Beam, and the bubbles push forward through the Ember and hit Skitty hard. And then, Cacnea attacks Seviper with a Needle Arm once again. Seviper then turns his attention to Corphish, knowing that it likely couldn't beat Cacnea, as it goes to bite it, but Corphish dodges, and then gives Seviper a Crab Hammer to the head. Skitty then goes to use a Tackle and a Double Slap on Cacnea, but before these attacks could hit, Cacnea launches a Pin Missile, hitting Skitty hard. Jessie was enraged, seeing that her and May were losing, and Ash and James were battling better than them, so she decided to cheat by sending out a second one of her Pokemon, Dustox, leaving May kind of shocked that Jessie decided to cheat now of all times, although Jessie just ignores May, as she tells Dustox to use a powerful Whirlwind to blow away both Cacnea and Corphish. This leads James and Ash to yell at Jessie, criticizing her for cheating and being unfair, reminding Jessie of the rules of a tag battle and how it was supposed to be 2 against 2, not 3 against 2. But Jessie simply states that her and May would lose if they played by the rules, and claimed that only men cared about rules, as May just stared embarrassed at Jessie, questioning why she teamed up with her in the first place. And then Brock tries to step in and criticize Jessie for breaking the rules, but he begins to wonder if maybe Jessie was right and only men cared about rules, and wondered if maybe he let Jessie get away with breaking the rules, then he could therefore earn the respect of more women and finally end his long-time streak of rejection. But he then just got confused, wondering why his mind was going to this place, and he just got so fucking confused and just done with life, man. He didn't understand what Jessie was talking about, and he was mad that he wasn't even really the official rep and everything, and he only got more confused when Wobbuffet forcibly popped out of his Pokeball suddenly and stood beside him. Dustox then uses a Poison Sting on Cacnea, while Seviper uses a Poison Tail on Corphish. Dustox then tries to use a Whirlwind on Cacnea, although Cacnea tries to counter by using a Pin Missile, but Dustox just strengthens its Whirlwind, adding a bit of a gust to it, and this causes the Pin Missiles to get sent back at James, Ash, and Cacnea, and Corphish as well, injuring them. Although the Pin Missiles do end up going a bit haywire and hit Skitty and Seviper as well, but Seviper quickly recovers and uses Wrap on Corphish, leading Jessie to brag about her strength and call Ash and James weak. Although this gets Corphish mad at Jessie, as instead of attacking Seviper, it actually attacks Jessie, launching a Bubble Beam straight at Jessie's face, causing Jessie to run around in fear to get away from the Bubble Beam, and in the process, she steps on Skitty's tail, who was now sleeping from boredom since it knew that it couldn't get a win off on Cacnea, and Skitty was startled, so it ended up using Blizzard, aiming it directly at Jessie as well, although Jessie runs away from this, hiding behind James, forcing James to be victim to the Blizzard, freezing him into an ice-cold statue. Jessie initially laughs at this, making fun of James, because, they were still having their argument, but then Skitty tried to attack Jessie again, using Assist, and this time Assist launched an Ember, which melted the ice block encasing James, thawing him, and also burning him, setting him on fire a bit, and it also set Jessie on fire as well. The battle then gets chaotic as fuck, as Corphish breaks out of Seviper's Wrap and uses Bubble Beam, while Dustox uses Psybeam, Seviper then uses Bite, Skitty uses Blizzard, and Cacnea uses Pin Missile, which hits all the Pokemon. Ash and May picked up on this chaos and tried to get it to stop, since they weren't ordering any of these attacks, and nor was Team Rocket. Brock tried to stop the battle as well, along with Wobbuffet, as he and Wobbuffet put their arms up into the air, trying to yell for everyone to stop the battle, and she declares that Jessie and May, Brock declares that Jessie and May should be disqualified, since they were the ones that had broke the rules, so basically he was just trying to bring that back to end the battle as quickly as possible, but Jessie simply gets mad at both Brock and Wobbuffet, telling them not to interfere with the battle, and has Dustox use a Whirlwind to knock Brock out, along with Wobbuffet, as they get blasted into Max and Pikachu, knocking them over momentarily as well. And also they get knocked into Meowth, since Meowth was by Max and Pikachu. Max was absolutely terrified by the chaos of attacks going on, and Meowth was stressing about how Jesse and James were still fighting. That was his primary concern, as he stressed that if Jesse and James couldn't get their act together and reunite, then they could never make a name for themselves in Hoenn and work together to please Giovanni. However, Meowth then takes his attention away from Jesse and James as he actually notices that Pikachu was right next to him, and he comes up with a plan to steal Pikachu, realizing that if he could tell Jesse and James about a plan to steal Pikachu, then this might be enough to motivate them to quit fighting each other. So he comes up with a plan to steal Pikachu, which involved taking advantage of the current chaos that was going on and stealing Pikachu while everyone else was too occupied by that. So Meowth proceeded to jump onto a nearby rock and tried to get Jesse and James' attention so that they could steal Pikachu together and he could explain his plan, but he saw that Jesse and James were still arguing and beating the shit out of each other as they climbed on top of each other, punched each other in the face, punched each other in the ass, etc. It was pretty graphic. Nah, I'm joking, but they were beating the shit out of each other, although they then noticed Meowth as he started doing a whole bunch of weird movements. He then declared that he wanted to play charades with Jesse and James, so they obliged. The reason why Meowth wanted to play charades was so that he could reveal his plan to steal Pikachu to Jesse and James without having to alert Ash and the gang. And sure enough, these charades worked, as Meowth mimicked them stealing Pikachu, and yeah, that basically led Jesse and James to find out what Meowth wanted to do, and they immediately agreed to set their differences aside so that they could all work together to steal Pikachu, as Jesse and James apologized to each other. Team Rocket then put Meowth's plan into action, which was now more detailed, as James managed to have Cacnea use Sandstorm, and Jesse had Seviper use Haze, and both of these attacks combined severely dimmed the vision of Ash and the gang, and it allowed Meowth to sneak up and use an extendable net to grab Pikachu. And when the smoke cleared, Ash noticed Team Rocket running away, and demands that they come back when he realizes that Team Rocket now had possession of Pikachu, and Max questioned how this could be possible when he suddenly remembered that he thought he saw Pikachu getting dragged off in the net while the smoke was up, but he didn't know for sure, so he didn't say anything. He felt bad, but Ash assured him that it was okay, and once again demanded that Team Rocket stop escaping and give Pikachu back, but Team Rocket just turned around and taunted Ash and the gang by saying their motto, with this being the first time that they said their motto with all their active Hoenn Pokemon out, and stating their plan to give Pikachu to their boss before running off again. So, Ash tells Pikachu to use Thunderbolt to break out of the net, but Team Rocket just laughed as they explained like usual the net was electric-proof. Team Rocket then tried running off again, but May put aside her differences with Ash, as she didn't want Pikachu to get taken away or anything, so she tells Skitty to use Assist, which happens to be a string shot this time, and this string shot manages to trip Team Rocket as they get caught in the string shot web, and trip. Ash thanks May for putting their differences aside and helping him, with May simply saying it was nothing. Jesse was angry upon being tricked, especially at Skitty, and told Seviper to use Poison Tail on Skitty, but right before the attack hit, Corphish protected Skitty by jumping up and bubble beaming Seviper, stopping the Poison Tail, leading May to thank Ash, stating that they were even now, as they had both helped each other. With Ash and May's friendship now being repaired, Cacnea then went in for a pin missile, and Seviper went to go attack as well, but Corphish knew that these attacks were coming specifically for Skitty, and jumped in front of Skitty to protect it again, using Harden to block the pin missile coming from Cacnea and the bite coming from Seviper. Skitty didn't want to have Corphish do all the work, as it happily jumped above Corphish and took action itself, using a double slap on all three of Team Rocket's Pokemon, Dustox, Seviper, and Cacnea. Hell, even Wobbuffet got hit a little bit. Brock and Max were admittedly impressed with May's Skitty, and were even more impressed as Skitty then used a second double slap on Team Rocket themselves, Jesse, James, and Meowth, and also Wobbuffet for a second time. This causes Team Rocket to drop Pikachu, therefore freeing him from the net as he reunites with Ash. With Pikachu free, Skitty then used Blizzard to freeze Jesse, James, Meowth, and Wobbuffet into one huge icicle. May, wanting to fully rebuild her and Ash's friendship, stated that they should finish off Team Rocket together, and Ash agreed, as Skitty then used Tackle on the huge icicle, and Corphish used Crab Hammer on the icicle, exploding the ice and sending Team Rocket blasting off from the impact. Ash and Pikachu then hug as Ash reunites with it, and Ash goes up to May, complimenting her first, saying she was actually a great tag battle partner after all. May agreed, and they both apologized to each other for the fighting they had been doing, stating that they should have distrusted each other more and worked together to win the battle against Oscar and Andy, knowing that they actually were good tag partners and could have done it if they actually gave each other more of a chance. Ash and May then begin to compliment each other immensely, making Max extremely glad that Ash and May were back to normal, and Brock glad that the gender war was over, as he went on and on about how men and women usually had plenty of disagreements, and it was rare for a case like this to happen where Ash and May were actually able to make up, but Brock was happy that they were back on good terms too.